Until now, we have been randomly throwing primitive data into the interpreter. But what if you want to store them? For that, we have to assign them a name. So let's talk about variable in this video. We use variable to store data, which can be anything like numbers, strings, and booleans. The equal sign assigns the value on the right side to the variable name on the left side. So whenever we call that variable name, we get the associated data. It's like giving a nickname to the data so we can easily refer to it later. For example, we can name a variable height and assign the value 6 to it. Similarly, we can name another variable name and store a string that tells us about the user's name. Additionally, we can create a variable called weight and store the value of 75.0 in it. So when we call a variable name, we retrieve the value associated with it. We can also print the value stored in multiple variables in a single line by using the print function and separating each variable with a comma. This acts like a space between the variables. In our upcoming work with Sublime Text, we will rely heavily on the print function since we won't have the convenience of this interactive mode. In Python, we can assign data to variables in different ways. We can assign value to A and B separately, or we can assign both values on the same line. This approach allows us to do cool things like swapping variables values. In other programming languages, we use a temporary variable for it, but this is more Pythonic way of doing it. Here we can see that the value of B has been assigned to A and the value of A to B. Let's go a little deeper. Variables are actually places in the computer's memory, RAM. We can think of them as boxes in which we store our data and give each box a name so that we can easily find and use the data inside whenever we need it. We can replace the data inside a variable with a new value or update it by performing some arithmetic operation. So suppose we assign 5 to A and then we increase that number by 1 and again store it in the same variable. This will give us the value 6. There is a shorthand notation for it, which is this plus equal symbol together will increase the current value of 6 by 1 and we will get the result 7. Now let's decrease the value by 2. We can also decrease the value by using shorthand notation. There are other shorthand notation called assignment operators and they work in a similar way to these ones. So you can try them for yourself. Next, let's talk about the rules for naming variables. Use only letters, numbers, and underscores. Don't use a number at the beginning. Don't use a built-in command like print, which are called keywords. So that's something which we should keep in mind when we are naming variables. Finally, let's discuss how to receive input from the user. To accomplish this, we can use the input function, which is placed on the right-hand side of the assignment statement. The value that the user types in will be assigned to the variable on the left-hand side. We can also display a prompt for the user to indicate what value we are requesting, such as their name. When we execute this line, it will prompt the user for their name. Once we give a name, we can refer to the variable name to access the name that was passed through it. That concludes this video. In the next one, we will cover how to receive numbers as input from the user. Additionally, we will introduce a new tool, Sublime Text, which we will use to write and edit our code.